2005, is that it's not bankable. So then there's legal gap as to how that instrument would be created. So that's one. That's why it's not bankable. That's why, as the banker said, it's not taken as security, cannot be taken as security. It's a nice story to tell that the ILG owns the certificate of title referencing the space of land, but what do you do with it? You can shelve it, put it on a frame and put it on the wall. And that could be a memorabilia for the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. You can reference it. In the meantime, under Section 10, somebody can walk in there, do a voluntary registration, and notwithstanding registration of disputes through the land tenure, through the Customary Land Dispute Settlement Act or other legal mechanisms, then the reality is that a state title is issued. Somebody does a LIR, and then Lands Department will authenticate it, and a deed is issued in favor of a third party. And so that subsequent third party, his interest is now indefeasible, and therefore you can't even contest it. One day you will find, sleeping in your house, you wake up, come outside your veranda, you'll find that somebody from another completely different part of Papua New Guinea will be putting a fence around your house and waving a deed to your face and telling you to leave. This just happened in New Island. The gazettos that come, the state instruments are abused. The existing regime or legal regime is not doing justice to our people. So, in APEC, represented in some shape or form in legislation, is not doing us good. So this is the resounding founding sentiment or the mood of the nation, the mood of the country through our consultations and our little talks with people outside of the formal hearings, is that, remember, this parliament needs to do something. We need to formalize. We need to be recognized. I mean, everybody seated here wants to be recognized, correct? There is a dying need for formality. So, question is how to do. How do we do this? And international standards and best practices dictate under UNDRIP, which even Papua New Guinea has not even ratified, which is okay because the Constitution articulates under our national goals and directive principles and the schedules that, not only are we empowered already by the spirit and whim of the Constitution to come up with legislation that will liberate and empower our people. So that's why we have technocrats and we have specialists to guide our thinking. And so the form of how to do is this, in my respectful view. We are all born inherently and associated inherently, I use this word purposely, inherently to customary land, to land. Right? Every single citizen in this country associates or belongs to land. When you die, you will return to land that you belong to. There will be gossip if I were buried somewhere other than where I was born. I'm not going there. But that's a figure of speech. So how do we do this? We are inherently associated to land through our clans. The books that are taught, when readers of the law go to the law school, we are read differently, correct? The textbooks, and we're confined to what is prevailing today. We need to push our mindset and push our vision beyond what the textbooks will tell you. We are born as a people inherently associated to land. And because of this association or connection with the land, through our clan, you will, in your clan, you dare not even speak out of turn. in the chieftaincy structure, there are chiefs who sit on the patapatas, and they know each of their roles. Respective posts on the patapata represents a particular chief. But this culture is not the same throughout the nation. So we need some benchmarks. Understanding that in a Motuan society, you dare say, Lauhanua Lohiana. No, there's no such thing, at least not now. But history and oral history will tell you the hierarchy of your social structure. So FIPIC comes in. How do we best address FIPIC? Legislation and recommendations will be made to make sure FIPIC is addressed, unique to each area in this country. And I agree entirely with what Mr. Malesa said earlier, that a rollout of customary land registration, or I like to use the word formalization, because registration could mean Tom from the West could come and register land in the East, and he has no association too. And he will hold his privilege over my right. These are big words, legal words, right versus privilege. You are all born and have association to land by right. Your privilege is what will be documented, because you will then have access to capital. So there is a school of thought that we have lost trust in the institution that is intended to provide for us, which is the government. But we cannot do without the government. This is a rule-based world order. Just yesterday, or 2 days ago, the Prime Minister of Canada delivered one of the most profound speeches of our time, and referencing fundamentally to a rules-based civilization which we live in. So what we are trying to do is commonize or singularize, formalize plurality, which is what is the trouble that theorists have in relation to bankability of customary land. We are saying, let's formalize our inherent connection to land by pronouncement through legislation. One. So, just because I'm Papua New Guinean, I already have access to land. But you'll ask me where? I'll say, I don't know, it's somewhere in Guinea. Then I'll take you to Guinea, and then I'll show you spaces of land. And then I should know that I should stop somewhere, because not all of it is mine. But how do I represent that? This is the trouble the modern world has in relation to Papua New Guinean wealth. We are so wealthy, we say. We are so rich, we say. But then you can't even put your hand on it and touch it, because there's no representation of that wealth. What we need is the ability through legislation to have representation of that wealth, which you can easily go and put on the counter and access and this government has spoken quite openly about a credit guarantee scheme, which will be made available through, could be the big fives. And because of this intervention, the interest rates at my bank at 25% will suddenly drop, because you must drop it. Obviously, they'll do their due diligence, they'll do their little numbers, but it'll drop significantly, so the money is made available to end user. How to do that? Because of an inherent connection to land, which is reflected on a registry, then out of that, subject to free, prior, and informed consent of your iduhu or clan in the old way, because even today, I'm sure as a Papua New Guinean, when you want to build a house, you still do a meal, right? You still do a feast. Call your elders, seek their consent. I want to build a house in this area which I understand belongs to us. True? They said, no, it's not your land, it belongs to this other clan. You should look at this area. Okay, then I want access to this land. Today, oral history is at great risk of being diluted and will be lost. So we need documentation. eventually. So when you have this meal and share your intention to have access to build a house on this land that belongs to your clan, then they say, sure. At that point, you pull out an A4 paper that is blank, take your laptop out and start typing some nonsense of a consent. But that consent form should be a state-recognized FIPIC form. So you can put it out there, and your clan elders and your entire clan will have to consensually agree to you having access to your land that inherently belongs to you, which already has a title or a registered folio and lease number, but no real definition. They'll start giving you definition for it. They'll say, you cut out 1,000 square meters, here to here, and the trustee, or let's just say imaginarily, because Mr. Malesa is the Deputy Secretary for Customary Land, ordinarily, if such a trusteeship was established, most probably, it is highly likely than not that Mr. Malesa could be the trustee, let's just say. So him and his officers will have their own machinery, public service machinery, to facilitate this consent process. You'll bring your form, which through your clan as evidence, and they will authenticate it against the register that is already on the system. There's no room, there should not be room for corruption of this process, because inherently and through the initial work of the trustee, you will have registered all the land, all the clan in your province. Then in your province, all the clans are registered, and all the land that belongs to the clans will then have been assisted by the trustee to do their little surveys at the expense of the state. And why not? You shouldn't have to go and pay for private surveyors and private anthropologists to make up your little Tumbuna story to authenticate your connection to this land that does not even belong to you in the first place. Because you know in 1965, you only had 5 houses in that village. Suddenly you have a 100-year-old story connecting you to land that does not even belong to you. So it cannot be authenticated outside of the system. This has to be a carefully designed, authentic process. So your consent form is taken to Waigani, to Mr. Malesa's office, register your interest and intention, consented, approved by your clan from a face value. They bring it forward. They'll run the tests and authenticate your connection to the clan, and then verify and create the lease interest, the instrument or the deed in your favor for 1,000 square meters. You'll take it, and you'll take it back to the bank and say, I have my nest fund, or I have my little capital, I want to build a house. Can you give me the money? And I'll give you the money. Or you want to buy a tractor because you want to plow your land and access fertilizers and all the machinery that farming requires. This is just at the small scale. This is how we unlock capital. Right now, when you go and get your land use agreement, which is what Mr. Ege referred to earlier, you go and pick up your land use agreement, you go to this fund, they'll give you your money, you go and build, you go to BNB and build all this material, you spend money to do that, correct? When you go and put it on the land that you own through your clan, it's dead capital. When you go and put the timber, which was 5 kina or 20 kina, you put it on, as soon as you connect it to the land, that is no legal representation of it, it becomes dead. You cannot do anything against it anymore. You cannot even use it as collateral for a second home or for another venture, even a small SME, because it becomes dead. You just kill the value of the goods you bought from BNBM, which you might have spent 200,000 kina. Your 200,000 kina, once it sticks into the ground, it suddenly, you choke its life, commercial life. There's no value anymore. This is about giving life to our customary wealth into the global economy. This is about giving cognizance to and creating value to what we own inherently. Everywhere in the world, in every capitalist country, they have to work and sweat so hard to get to the first base. In this country, a man and a woman need to just sleep together, wake up, and suddenly you are at the front line. You should be at the starting line. And legislation should fix that gap and bridge that gap. So it's amazing. I didn't have to even teach this. When we went to lay, I was coached and they taught us, even the Tolais told us how we should do it. It's all scripted. Even in Mount Hagen, they showed us a map and they told us, Mount Hagen City here, everything outside of here, customary land with a freehold. Beyond there is a coffee plantations in Juaka that belong to, freehold titles that eventually became state titles or converted. So we don't necessarily recreate the wheel. Because there's a level of trust in the system of governance that we have. We simply create an authority of trust parallel to what's already existing, only with significant fundamental shifts in the space of free, prior, and informed consent. We must make sure we do not, any reform must make sure it does not, it must promote or be within the ambit of Section 53 of the Constitution, so as not to deprive your neighbor, so as not to deprive ordinary citizens from access to their land or full enjoyment of their properties. Any reform that we introduce must make sure conflict resolution mechanisms meet international standard, that is fair, and that is equitable, and that is safe. This is where reform must take us. In terms of FAPEC, there has to be a substantive and not a symbolic process, a substantive consent process. What I just illustrated is only a small example. But there must be a substantive process defined by law, scripted and prescribed. It must recognize our unique cultural, social structures, our behavior. It has to understand the Mekos think differently from the Jigas. We all think differently, but there should be a level playing field that facilitates your unique consent process and benchmarks set. It has to be enforceable so that even the one who's not consenting must be able to register a process of withdrawal of consent or lack of consent, not just pro-consent, but even negative consent. There should be a mechanism prescribed. So, I could go on and on and on, and I do want to go on and on and on. But, basically, the SABL system, there's Section 10, Section 11 have been abused under the Land Act. So much so, it's not funny. And I made reference to an example through the forestry process. I've witnessed first-hand examples. So there's a lot of elite capture. Because a person, as Mr. Malesa referenced earlier, because a person who's got the pen and the paper is doing paperwork for you suddenly becomes on the paper as the landowner. I speak for, they will say. This person has no connection, even no knowledge Suddenly he's the expert. Because of a piece of paper fraudulently obtained between two people, suddenly has this process. Every other place this side of the globe have an authority that facilitates this social contract. This is social contract we're talking about. To draw the wider consent of your clan. And we must make sure we block off any risk of corrupting or coercion. So there is real actual supervisory process and interplay or interactivity between beneficiary and trustee, as opposed to trustee just picking up paper and putting stamps on and sending people off and you go, you start me at how you go now. No, we must take full responsibility. So the recommendations are going to be quite comprehensive and elaborate, and, but the basic hallmarks is this. We're inherently born and connect ourselves to land, correct? Our inherent connection should be recognized by the eyes of the law. And parallel to, and this is not to be confused with state land, but the same actors who are responsible for creation of law are the ones responsible to create this for us. This is because we've all socially contracted our minds and our hearts to our respective members, including myself and Mr. Morris here, Mr. Bassa there. That's our duty. We carry however many people the constituency represent. If I, from Hiri Quarry, 160,000 people of Hiri Quarry have entrusted me with the duty to think for them and deliver what is best for them, that should be the same for the 48 to 50, 80,000 people of Abau for Sepuka Temu's case. We must think collectively to deliver an outcome that will best suit our people. And not just for our respective constituents, but for the nation. So I'm not thinking here only for the Motu-Koita people. We have a serious issue of peri-urban shifts and drifts between Mount Hagen, Lei, Goroka, Port Moresby, and everywhere where there's a city or there's a town. So we are not just unique, the urban indigenous people in Port Moresby. Same has been, the challenges have been faced in other centers as well, but us more so. So because Bagani is here, it's easy. You get off a plane, carry a little suitcase, walk past and see a bit of dirt, no got munching down Lemso. Tomorrow maybe I go sing out of line below me 5 mile camp. We are going to use sticks, and this happened I witnessed it. I have witnessed it time and again in my short space of life here on earth. I drive past Geraka as a primary school student, and it's all gardening land. 40 years later, it's like a thriving urban community, and somebody stands out there and starts selling land for 5,000, 10,000, and then somebody is facilitating it. Now suddenly there's a thing called settlement to suburb. These nice coinages, words, big words. Why are we afraid of fixing social issues and helping people to, be attracted to their own original place of birth? There is so much wealth back home. Why are you must be and attracted to poverty? This goes to the heart of even poverty. We have a real poverty issue. School fee now, phone look at a member of parliament, pull up, ask him, school fee. I want, must ATM here. So we want to do this paradigm shift of mindset. We must shift in our ways of thinking. Member no ATM. Member go make him low blow, you mean low, so you can sit down good the future now, tomorrow and forever and never. So my children who are not yet born, or my great-grandchildren who are not born, are not going to come into a rough world where they have to wing it or survive or not. Otherwise, they have no hope. We already have this, we carry this burden for our people. So we are at an opportunity. This forum here, you're sitting right at the verge of creating history. We need your support to think these discussions that we're having. Because this is architecture of the future. You are tailoring what the future should look like. You know, if this is delivered well, this report that we've come up with and the bill truly addresses these big statements that each of us are making today, it will completely change the economy of this country, even without going to oil and gas yet. Yesterday, the Deputy Prime Minister made mention of 70 million kina collected last year from your land rates. What's the average land rate? Depending, let's just say, for argument's sake, 1,000 kina maybe. But you know, quarterly they'll add it to make it 4,000 kina, and then they'll garnish your account and it'll sit in their account. But imagine that 70 million kina of 5% relative to 5% of land. You're talking about without improvement, and just simply erecting a house, theoretically speaking, 1.3 billion kina of an economy that is not documented. Our budget in this country is what? 28 billion. And this is just one space, just land. Imagine you're talking about cascading across to the oil and gas. We have Hellas here, we have plant-side landowners here. Your benefits, designed by fancy financial modeling, gave you only recently a collective sum of, very, very big numbers. But imagine if your land were recognized by the eyes of the law. For any greenfield projects, this means your project site, as example in Milo, will have significantly been de-risked. Your developer suddenly sees a real attraction to come to Papua New Guinea. And with him, he brings tourists. Because then the people from one coastline to the next, because of the formality, they have access to land, access to credit, they can develop their little areas. Right now, that is difficult. Right now, development is flying over our heads. And you say, how come every multilateral NGOs and developers talk about all these places outside of Port Moresby, and we are here waiting and nothing is happening? Because we don't tick their box, apparently. We're not attractive enough. Well, we can make it more attractive if our responsible collective leadership of the country came together and said, let's do this for once. Let's not talk about anything else, but let's try to fix this gap. And let's give them, not go and print state titles, but give them their actual access to land. And we can fix their problems. Before I close up, before coming to Parliament, I was really well trained by Mr. Hanna in litigation. As a litigation lawyer, I ran my own practice, and then before going into Parliament, I ran a case. And I filed a case against a certain ILG. This ILG of people belonged to a place quite far and foreign from the land area they claimed ownership of. And the land area they claimed ownership of was not even 10,000 square meters. It was like, I'll tell you, it was from coastline here all the way to where your eye stops, where the mountain ridge you see. Going back all the way to the Gulf and Central border and down to the coast. This is huge parcel of land. So I know firsthand what injustice this ILG legislation can do to people. You will be sleeping and you wake up and suddenly somebody put a fence around. It's already happening even just down this side. Every township you go in Papua New Guinea, you sit down, people are sitting there playing card and chewing like, half the time they're talking about your land. If you don't do anything to it, somebody will. So before they do, it should be the collective responsibility of all of us. And more than all of us, the 118 members of Parliament, these next 4 sittings of Parliament this year. We have to come up with a real tangible. I agree with somebody's comment on my post. Not a mile on back. Talk, and nothing will come of it. I don't want us to be here, waste people's money and have lunch and then go back again. I want all of us to be pragmatic and proactive and really determined. You all have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to come with a report and a bill. We will need your support. Talk to your member to support the work of this committee. Talk to your member to agree. If the government doesn't adopt the report, we will take it as a private member's bill and put it on a notice paper. That's what's going to happen. And if a member of parliament refuses, then rethink his or her re-election in 2027. You have a position of leverage. You must leverage off it. So get the message out there. This is not a window dressing customary land reform special parliamentary committee. You know, like, I don't want to be a part of a committee that's just a window dress. We must come up with real pragmatic solutions for our people. I'll stop there for the timing, but that's how you formalize capital, and that's how we can get access to money. So the 400, remember in COVID, they talked about 400 million, and they gave, some 200 million gave it to BSP. We were only certain people got it. Now, they're talking about a credit guarantee scheme, big money budget. None of you will access it. You drill man as well. You will not touch it. And blow. That's the truth. So, you want access to it? Talk to your member. All must support him this lab bill.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, very good suggestions from the Special Parliamentary Committee in response to the issues. Normally, we would usually close a panel after we hear from the reactors, but let's turn this a bit around. I would like to end this panel by asking our 3 interveners from the beginning, in reverse order, to respond to the chair's suggestions with one concrete, suggestion on how to operationalize some of those suggestions in your line of work. So let's do it like in an elevator pitch. No? Imagine you're moving from, we're in Guinea Haus, and we're moving from level 1 to level 13. So you have 30 seconds to explain to the chairman, this is what I think of what you suggested. Okay? So let's keep it very short, sweet, and practical. So, Acting Secretary Malesa, how do you think should the Department of Land, and for example, if you become the trustee in the, under the Customary Land Reform Act, how would you act differently to maintain the trust of the people in administering the customary land system?
Thank you. It's very, customary land is a very complex and dynamic issue that we often talk about. We cannot do things overnight. I would support a policy that, a bill that comes out from what we've done already. I am talking about consultation. My biggest issue is consultation, and if we get it, do it widely, I don't have a problem. And with what Chairman has mentioned, trustee would be a good option to drive the management of customary land in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much.